So I'm just sharing the story as it unfolds in front of me. Going to the bank, older gentleman. I could use that term for myself at this point, but older gentleman meaning a man probably in his 70s, early 70s, let's say. Maybe he's a grizzly 65. I don't know. People probably think I'm a grizzly 65 when I grow my beard out. Anyway, just to paint the picture, an older white man was crossing my path, and it was kind of a 50-50, like whether he should go or I should go, but I was in my car and he was on foot, and I just happened to kind of be there first, and it wasn't really much of an issue to me, but by his irritated, frustrated, distressed reaction, I just assumed he was not very excited about how I handled that particular moment, and it was just one of those random moments that we all navigate every single day. And the thought in my head was, my brain immediately started this story about an angry white man. Now, for anyone that doesn't know the face behind my voice, I'm a middle-aged white man, according to the way I look. And what's interesting is how quickly our brain starts telling stories about people that we have experiences with. Had it been an older woman or an older black man or a teenager, or you get it, like it could be any person, and what we do is we immediately project this story onto the experience. And I perceive that most of society is living in this automatic projected story that we're constantly acting out with each other. And all it takes is taking a moment to step back and say, okay, I'm telling a story, I'm projecting a story, my brain is automatically doing something because it's programmed to do that by the media, by social media, by what I observe and experience in the world around me. And just learning that, and I say it simply and matter of factly, I realize it isn't perceived that way by a lot of people, but the more I've just practiced sitting back and observing the experience of being in my body, the more it's obvious that my mind has all sorts of random thoughts that I would never consciously choose. And the more I try to control them, the more resistant and persistent they become. And anybody that's ever tried to control your thoughts or control your emotions know that that backfires and that doesn't work, and it creates resistance, and it actually reinforces the very thing that you want to go away. So in learning how to surrender, and learning and practicing surrender, rather, and practicing observation, and practicing noticing my breath, and just sitting back and noticing that my body has automatic sensations and my mind has automatic thoughts. And that just because my mind has thoughts, something I'm working on with my 10-year-old, just because my mind has thoughts doesn't mean those thoughts define who I am, doesn't mean that those thoughts are reality. It's that my brain is capable of all sorts of potentialities. My brain is capable of thinking or imagining almost anything because it's like this amazing creation machine. But the fact that whoever I am, is stepping back and observing the phenomenon of my automatic mind suggests that my mind is just doing what my mind does. And if you were to look at it with an fMRI, like a functional magnetic resonance imaging or something like that, if you could observe it in real time, you would just see this constant real-time energetic electrochemical associative process that is pulsing throughout my neurological body, and that is plugged into my muscles, it's plugged into my heart, it's plugged into everything, and it just pulses automatically. So we're pulsing automatically, we're co-creating, and like my experience at the bank. So this older white man crosses my path, he gets annoyed with me, I think to myself, wow, why is that guy angry? And I start to sort of unravel a story of that this man, which may be true because I've worked with a lot of men, that a man in his 70s has lived in a particular bubble, depending on his history and his story, of course, but a man in his 70s in the United States has lived through probably one of the most prosperous times in human history for regular folks. And that man, if he is plugged in to just based on the way he was dressed and the way he reacted to me, if that man is plugged into certain media outlets like Fox News or CNN or some sort of propaganda machine that is telling this man that his world is falling apart and that his world is failing him and that there is some other who is to blame for his problems and that all of these others are responsible for his demise and the demise of people like him. So his automatic response of "how dare you" to me was suggestive of a particular kind of life story. Because there's many situations where someone would not react that way unless he knew he could get away with it. There are certain contexts, if someone reacted that way, they would be immediately punished by the environment around them. So all that to say is I had a moment at the bank. I observed it. I experienced it. I noticed it. I noticed how automatic my mind is. And then I very quickly, within a matter of seconds, just stepped back and observed the automaticity of my mind and the automaticity of my body and the automaticity of this man's response, and that we're all just acting it out across the planet. We're creating all the stuff that we don't want to create. We're participating in all the stuff we don't want to participate in. We're resisting our nightmares. We're resisting our pain. We're resisting our grief. We're resisting and co-creating thus from a place of fear, from a place of injury, from a place of pushing all the stuff that we don't want to acknowledge or think about or take responsibility for into the darkness, into the space that we don't want to look at. And because it doesn't actually disappear, it acts itself out in the shadows. It acts itself out unconsciously. It acts itself out automatically through the body. And if we're not stepping back and observing that phenomenon and taking the opportunity to take charge of it or to guide it or to practice it, then it is going to be automatically acted out. And there are very, very smart, very wise, very conscious people who know all that, and they utilize that to use and abuse and manipulate. And that's how I see society. The end.